Week 9, folks. So many trades, a coach let go, and some big important games coming up. And it's only the halfway point. Welcome to Week 9 of the Blitz Zone. I'm your host, Eric Rosen, and I'm coming live from the studios of CTV in Staten Island, New York. Tonight, we have a special guest coming back for the first time in 2 years. You know him as the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jamie, the sportsman Hickson.
Surprise, surprise, guys. It's great to see you again. Eric, thank you so much for inviting me onto tonight's show. It's a real honor to be here.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And you know what? On this momentous night, we got a lot to talk about.
I'm going to say that again.
And you know what took place this past week? Well, besides the crazy trade deadline, was the fact that for the first time that should have happened last year, Hugh Jackson got fired.
Yeah.
This was a long time coming.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy who basically is famous for being the second coach to ever have an 0-16 season.
Yep. In his defense, though, he just did not have anything. He literally had nothing to work with for 2 years. I mean, last year he had Myles Garrett as a top draft pick. This year there was the luxury of having Baker Mayfield, and there was also Carlos Hyde that they brought in to be an every down back for Mayfield to give the ball to. But after the first 3 weeks, that's when things really started to snowball in the wrong direction for them. And unfortunately, somebody had to be the scapegoat, and it had to be him. And even in his firing, he is still really bitter about the way things turned out. He insisted that in his rookie year as a head coach, if they got off to the start this year that they did, or if they got off to the start in 2015 or 2016, I should say, the way they did this year, they would have been a better team by now. It's not possible. It's hard to try and get some really good vibes going when the cupboard is so bare. I mean, after Mayfield and Myles Garrett and a couple of other decent players, who else is there? Well,
they also drafted Denzel Ward with the 4th overall pick to be their top corner since Joe Hayden left the team. And he's actually done a great job to pair with Myles Garrett in that defense. And then Jamie Collins, who they kept, who they got from New England years ago, also another important piece to that defense. Defense actually is doing its job. It's the offense, the injury issues that have been taken to the receivers. But I do like Antonio Callaway. He really is. Yes, he has he had his personality issues at my beloved Florida, but I think he's going to turn those issues around. And Jarvis Landry, for a guy who's a slot receiver, they gave him a lot of money, to come as the number 1 receiver.
Yeah. At least Jarvis Landry is trying to assert some type of authority in the locker room, and he has been a good locker room presence, but he can only do so much for them offensively.
And do you see the way he was on Hard Knocks? He laid it into his teammates during that episode, which they do every year. HBO picks one team every year to follow for 5 weeks during the training camp portion of the season, and he laid it into his teammates. This is exactly why we were 0-16 last year. Expletive deleted. I can't say it because we're on a family network.
We get it.
But he really told his teammates, if you guys want to play dead, that's fine. Then we'll have another crappy season. But if you guys want to win a game, well, buckle up and get yourself to work. Get your lunchbox and go do some constructing of this team. Contribute somehow. He has the heartbeat of that team. But it wasn't just the issues with Hugh Jackson. He had a tumultuous relationship with the offense coordinator, now fired too, Todd Haley.
Yeah.
In fact, Baker Mayfield said, I'm not going to miss Hugh Jackson at all. When your quarterback says he's not going to miss you, then you got some problems right there.
Well, now that Jackson has become, it seems like the 25th or the 30th head coach to be fired by the Browns in the last 20 years, who are they going to go to? And the main question is, does anybody even want the job?
Well, right now, Greg Williams, remember, that is the guy who's famous for Bountygate when he was defensive coordinator for the Saints. And he then went on to stints with the Rams and the Titans and so many teams. But now he's with the Browns this year. He's going to be the interim head coach for the rest of the season. As for the future, on the other hand, John Dorsey is probably going to be looking to bring somebody probably from, say, New England, considering he came from the New England organization, or Kansas City for that matter.
Josh McDaniels, maybe?
No, Josh McDaniels had a chance to go to Indianapolis, and he was supposed to be the head coach before the season began. Then he relinquished the job to stay in New England. That's when they hired Frank Reich, who's the offensive coordinator last year with the Philadelphia Eagles for the Colts. But as for Josh Daniels, I think he's staying in New England because I wouldn't be shocked if he was promised that he's going to be groomed to take over for Belichick when the time comes.
Yeah, but when is that time going to take place? Because the Patriots are still a Super Bowl contender. Bill Belichick is not going to retire anytime soon. He does not let on about anything. But one thing that we do know is he loves that job, and he's going to be there a long time.
Oh, yes. As for next year for the Browns, there could be a bunch of names out there in the college circuit to look at. But I really think it's going to come from either the New England organization, not Josh Daniels. I also, there could be some names out there like Tom Cable, for instance.
Here's a name out of left field. He's been a head coach before, but now he's got it great in the college game. He's a multi-time national champion, but everybody is talking about when the right time it is for him to leave Alabama to return to the NFL. Nick Saban.
I don't think so. He's got such a good thing at Alabama with this because they keep producing championship caliber team after championship caliber team year in, year out. He's making more money there at Alabama than he probably could be making in the pros. And on top of that, the type of control that he has with Alabama, there's no way he's going to have that type of unfiltered control with an NFL team.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're Bill Belichick, unless you're Mike Shanahan or, Andy Reid. There are only a few coaches who have that type of control or executive power over a team. He's not going to have that, Nick Saban, when it comes to an NFL team. But in college, yes.
Here's some food for thought. Saban has already been there before,
with the Dolphins,
in the NFL and in the college game. Bill Belichick has been mostly an NFL guy. How do you think he would do with a college program?
If there's a college team I would love Bill Belichick to coach, it'd be Navy.
Funny you mention that because that was exactly where his father was an assistant, and that's also his hometown. He was born in Annapolis, Maryland. He was raised in Annapolis, Maryland, but he was born in Tennessee.
Well, that's why, Bill Belichick is a no-nonsense, no BS, no, cancer player type of person.
Because he gets that from his father.
Yeah, he's a disciplined person, and he makes sure the team is disciplined. He's no bull poppy. That's who Bill Belichick is. Whether you love him, whether you hate him, especially sometimes he has the personality of a toaster oven when he does press conference interviews. I'm sorry to say that, Bill. I like you as a coach, but man, you don't have that great personality when it comes to press conferences, but it doesn't matter because he produces championships and he produces good teams and he knows how to get the best out of his players year in, year out.
The NFL record for the most regular season victories by a head coach is held by Don Shula. He won over 300 games in his career.
Bill Belichick's going to eviscerate
Dare I say that Bill Belichick is going to stick around long enough to win over 300 games and break Shula's record? Because at this rate, the Patriots are not slowing down anytime soon.
Definitely.
Tom Brady is still great. The Patriots are still great. Bill Belichick has always been a great coach, be it as a head coach or as an assistant coach or even as a defensive coordinator. Dare I say he's going to break Don Shula's record?
Oh, without a doubt, he will. Yeah, he's definitely going to be great. And as for the Browns, though, Good luck, John Dorsey. You're going to need a lot of it filling that position. Now, as for the trade deadline, what trade did you like the most from this past weekend? Which one was your least favorite, if you?
Well, the one that I liked the most was seeing Carlos Hyde being rescued from Cleveland. Yes, I said it. He got rescued from the Browns and was brought over to Jacksonville. I think he'll be the perfect complement for an injured Leonard Fournette. He can be an every down back. He could take a lot of pressure off of Blake Bortles getting the ball. Jacksonville did the right thing getting this kid down to Northern Florida. I also like seeing Golden Tate being sent to Philadelphia.
For a fourth rounder.
I think he'll be perfect for Carson Wentz, as if they didn't have enough dangerous receivers in their arsenal now with Alshon Jeffrey and also Zach Ertz, the tight end. Getting Golden Tate was brilliant.
He hasn't been he hasn't scored more than a touchdown, but he was on. But when it comes to receptions, he is targeted a lot. He was on pace to break his own career record, his own career stats for a single season with the Lions. Now, because of the fact that he's not in Detroit, that gives Kenny Galladay actually he's probably gonna get a lot more targets now in the receiving core for the Lions and for the Eagles. Yeah, that gives Carson Wentz not only Alshon Jeffrey and not only the guy from USC Nelson Aguilar, but now you got him in the mix on Kelsey. They really have a crazy unit going for them.
And you asked me what was my least favorite trade?
Yep.
This one's of sentimental value to me. It's seeing Snacks Harrison being traded to the Lions. Damon Harrison spent his entire career in New York before this trade, and he was basically a guy who was kind of a underdog story. Grew up in Mississippi, never got any Division I offers from anywhere, and then after spending a little time in junior college, he toiled in the NAIA circuit, playing for a small college in Iowa before being signed by the Jets. He's had such an underrated career in New York, but now I think he's really going to be able to help that Lions defense big time.
Oh, yes. And
he's really going to be missed in the New York area, though. He was such a productive player for the Jets and Giants.
And he gets no days off on Thanksgiving. He's going to actually have to play. So whoever has snacks, he's not going to get his snack that night. But,
I think he'll still be able to get his snacks after the game because he's going to be helping himself to some turkey if the Lions win.
Oh, yes. I always love Thanksgiving. I can't wait. That's what I love about the month of November, the 3 Thanksgiving Day games. The Lions and the Cowboys are annually playing. And you know what? This year they got the Saints. I believe the Saints and the Falcons are playing the nightcap in New Orleans.
Yep. And then Black Friday, a whole lot of college football is taking place. Nebraska has their annual game, and then there's the traditional rivalries that are taking place. Washington State against Washington, Arizona against Arizona State, of course, Florida against Florida State. Although this year, it could be a real disappointing result even before the kickoff because Florida State has been awful.
Oh, yeah.
Florida has been very up and down.
They lost this past week in the largest cocktail party game against
Lost
Georgia.
the Georgia game, and now Georgia's playing Kentucky for first place in the Eastern Division.
But I love the Alabama LSU game that's coming up.
That's
this week.
the best game of the weekend by far.
Yeah, the top number 1 and 4 ranked teams. In fact, they came out with the college football rankings. But anyway, in terms of the trade sale, I actually. And this is a trade that a lot of people – there are 2 trades that also took place too. Besides Harrison Snacks, you got Eli Apple who's traded to the Saints to help that secondary. DJ Swearinger, the safety for the Redskins, he's going to get some help with Clinton Dix from the Green Bay Packers, who was just traded for a 4th-round pick. Yeah, so now he's going to be they're buddies in the offseason who work out with each other. Now they're going to be a crazy safety tandem for the Redskins because this team is already good enough as it is at 5-2, first in the NFC East. And then the other one, Ty Montgomery, the guy who had the famous fumble, instead of staying in the LA Rams, the loss of the Rams 29-27, he was supposed to, get the ball, knee himself in the end zone, give the ball to Rodgers with 2 minutes to go at the 25. Instead, he decides, let me just take the ball outside, attempt to get a big kickoff return. Oh, no, I'll fumble the ball, give it back to the Rams so they can kill the clock and win the game.
And he pissed off a lot of people in the locker room with his antics on that ensuing kickoff. And as it turns out, wound up getting him a one-way ticket out of there.
For a 7th-round pick. Of all things.
That just goes to show you how little respect this guy got in the trade market.
He definitely got dissed. And now, him going to Baltimore, he's in a not too bad situation. Even though they're 4-4, the Ravens actually have a chance of ending their 3-year drought. They just got to go, 6-2 the second half, but they got a chance. All right, since last week last week I'm going to give you just some quick scores from the Week 7 games. Broncos beat the Cardinals 45-10, 2 pick sixes to begin the game. Redskins defeated the Cowboys 20-17. Cowboys had a chance to win the game, tie the game with a 52-yard field goal that should have been a 47 on a stupid illegal snap penalty. Chargers beat the Titans in London 2019. Titans go for a ill-advised 2-point conversion play that was broken up by Adrian Phillips of the Chargers defense. Patriots beat the Bears 38-31. Brady throws 3 touchdowns, and Kevin White is prevented from getting to the end zone for the Bears to tie the game up. Colts destroy the Bills 37-5. T.Y. Hilton had 2 touchdowns on the day. Indy had 220 yards, snapping their 4-game losing streak. Lions beat the Dolphins 32-21. Kerryon Johnson, 158 yards. Great performance of the rookie out of Auburn. Vikings beat the Jets 37-17. Latavius Murray, 155 yards rushing. Panthers over the Eagles 21-17. The game-winning 1-yard fade touchdown to Greg Olsen with 1:22 left. Buccaneers beat the Browns 26-23 in overtime. Chandler Canzaro with the game-winning field goal. Texans over the Jaguars 20-7. Jaguars 3 turnovers on the game. Saints over the Ravens 24-23. The Ravens go 81 yards. They pretty much get a 14-yard touchdown from Flacco to John Brown. Tucker misses his first extra point in his career since they moved the field goal positioning in 2015. And the Rams beat the 49ers 39-10. Gurley had 3 touchdowns and 2 touchdowns by Goff. And C.J. Beathard got sacked 7 times and picked off twice. Chiefs over the Bengals 45-10. Patrick Mahomes is having a Super Bowl caliber season. And the Falcons defeat the Giants on Monday night 23-20. 3 touchdowns for Matt Ryan.
All I can say is, after the Patriots, the Chiefs are the team to beat in the AFC. Patrick Mahomes, I've slowly but surely become a fan of his, mostly because his dad pitched for the Mets all those years ago, but this kid gets it. He's gotten the respect of his teammates. He's confident. He does not make very many mistakes,
You ever heard
which
that?
is more important.
Definitely. You ever heard that song "Young Blood"?
Yep.
On the rare by 9 Seconds of Summer or whatever Seconds of Summer. That is basically, he is young blood being infused in that Chiefs team. No wonder why they traded up years ago with the Texans to get that pick. And it has paid off dividends.
One funny thing about him, though, have you heard his post-game interviews?
Not that much, but I loved when he wore the Mets jersey and all that.
That was in tribute to his dad, because his dad pitched for the Mets briefly. If you hear his post-game interviews, you would have thought that he sounded like a cross between Bobcat Goldthwait and Bert from Bert and Ernie of Sesame Street fame.
Oh, my God.
He sounds... His voice is really bizarre, and it's kind of made him a laughingstock a little bit, but...
He's no laughing matter.
He makes up for it with his play. The kid is spectacular. I just hope that he could keep this up for a long time, because the Chiefs have been in need of a championship since the end of the AFL versus NFL Super Bowl meetings. And
Len
this
Dawson.
Since the Len Dawson days. And could this be the year for the Chiefs for them to win a Super Bowl? We're going to have to wait and see, because if you've seen their playoff history in the past, it's not been very good.
And especially last year when they lost to the Titans, and the way they lost it, especially Mariota throwing a touchdown to himself.
Totally lucky, especially considering that it was on on a deflected pass by, of all people, Darrelle Revis.
I know. And you know what was crazy? This Chiefs team, though, honestly, is in the right direction. Getting Sammy Watkins, he had his coming out party this past week. But you had Tyreek Hill, who's talk about a downfield home threat receiver who can stretch the field. Kareem Hunt, who is probably I would say the second best running back in the league behind Todd Gurley. And you have Travis Kelce, who years ago had his issues when he was at Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I remember watching this ESPN story about him and how he had to clean up his act, which he has done. And he's really grown into the type of player that anybody is proud of, especially at that position. He's not your typical, he's not a great blocking tight end. He's he's more, you can line him up as a receiver almost.
Mm-hmm.
And his brother plays for the Eagles, in fact.
Yeah.
So the Kelce family, they got some good genes in that family, some good athletic genes. Overall, now let's go into week 8. This past week, we had Monday night in upper state New York.
Upstate New York, yeah.
Yeah, Bills hosting the Pats.
And what happened? The same old, same old. Basically, Tom Brady playing the role of the Bills' daddies. Do you know what his record is against the Bills lifetime? 29-3.
Which is crazy. That's the best mark against any single team in his career.
I'm not sure what his record is against the Jets because he's had his games against the Jets where he's dominated them too, but I've never, ever, ever seen a quarterback dominate an opponent the way Tom Brady has with the Bills.
Besides what Roethlisberger does against the Browns. I think that's probably the second best to me in terms of records against one team.
The Browns and the Bengals, because he's practically unbeatable in his home state of Ohio.
That's right, Miami of Ohio Redhawk. But speaking of the 6th-round pick out of the 2001 draft out of Michigan University, Tom Brady is having a spectacular season. He already got his 500th touchdown of his career. He's still yards away from catching up to Drew Brees for the all-time record for most receiving and most passing yards, which I think at some point he will.
And Brees is still active. He's already broken the record. Dare I say he plays another 2 or 3 years, because Brees is still throwing the ball extremely well. Brady is throwing the ball extremely well.
Well, they both have good regimens. You ever see Brady's workout regimen? That's why he isn't. It's strenuous.
Yeah.
And it's a strict diet that he's on too as well. This is why he is probably the greatest 41-year-old quarterback I've ever seen. Yeah.
Dare I say, Patriots versus Saints in the Super Bowl?
It's a possibility.
It would be a battle of two of the oldest quarterbacks to ever square off in a Super Bowl.
That would be something right there. The experience of both quarterbacks. That would be a defensive coordinator's worst nightmare. Game planning.
I think you would be seeing somewhere in the area of 38-31 or 41-34 or 45-38. It would be right up there. It would be about as close as it was to last year when the Eagles won by a similar score.
Well, the Patriots beat the Bills 25-6, including the game-ending pick six by Devin McCourty. Then we go to the desert. The Cardinals, 49ers. The Cardinals can't beat any other team except the 49ers. And they did it again with the game-winning 9-yard touchdown from Josh Rosen. Not my cousin, folks. I know I would love for that to be the case, but he threw it to fellow rookie Christian Kirk with 34 seconds to go. And Larry Fitzgerald got the game-winning 2-point conversion. Ravens, Panthers. What happened to the Ravens? They were number 1 defense in yards per game, 287 points per game allowed entering this matchup, and they allowed Cam Newton spanked them for 3 total touchdowns.
I think you might have answered your own question there. The defense showed some real vulnerability against Cameron Newton. Not only that, but offensively, they really sputtered against the Carolina squad that's really found themselves ever since they brought back Julius Peppers for a second tour of duty.
And the Ravens end up losing 36-21, and Flacco nearly picked off twice in that game. Yikes. How about the Buccaneers and the Bengals? My God, this was basically Jameis Winston's worst nightmare come true through 4 interceptions.
And he gets pulled in favor of Ryan Fitztragic.
But that tragedy nearly brought them back with 2 big touchdowns. He threw a 72-yard score to Mike Evans. That's the 5th touchdown of at least 50 yards he's had on the year. Then he throws a touchdown to O.J. Howard, gets the 2-point conversion, ties up at 34. But unfortunately, the Bucs defense gave up a 23 and a 9-yard reception to A.J. Green, setting up the game-winning field goal by the Bengals, and they win 37-34. Unfortunately.
That was a game the Bengals really came close to letting get away because they had a double-digit lead at one point, and then all of a sudden the quarterback change that the Buccaneers made got them tied for a time.
And that's why Fitz is now the quarterback again instead of Jameis Winston. So that's going to, Dirk Cutter, the head coach right now, is going to be in some serious jeopardy going into the season. Last year, he was this close in getting the boot. Mm-hmm. It could be all but certain after this year.
Speaking of things being certain, one thing that you can count on is the Steelers beating the Browns.
Which they did. They spanked them. They beat them unmercilessly. Ben Roethlisberger threw 2 TDs to Mr. Antonio Brown. James Conner had over 190 all-purpose yards, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns on the day.
Add to that the fact that the game was played in Pittsburgh. No chance the Browns were going to beat the Steelers in that hostile environment known as Heinz Field.
And this year, another reason why Cleveland's bad, they've committed 65 penalties. When you commit that many penalties, you're just hurting your team in so many ways.
See, this is a matter of discipline right there, and the Browns are not showing any discipline whatsoever on each side of the ball.
Goose egg. Though the defense, I have to say, besides this game, because if you look at the first 5 weeks, they were in a lot of games. Mm-hmm. They were in 4 overtime games in which they won, lost twice, unfortunately, and were tied up week 1 against the Steelers. So they had chances to win. Mm-hmm. But when they played the Steelers, this was the one of only 2 games where they lost considerably. Now, the Browns, Chiefs, this is the rematch from the Monday night game earlier in the season, which the Broncos had a chance to win on the last play, and Keenum overthrew the open receiver. This time around, they have an opening lead, but then, of course, we're talking about Patrick Mahomes here. 300 passing yards. This is the 8th straight game. He's had 300 passing yards.
It's painfully obvious that the athletic ability in his family runs really deep because naturally, taking after his dad, Patrick Mahomes was a good baseball player in addition to being a good football player.
He's got a good arm, just like his pop.
He always had an outstanding arm. A lot of people were a little skeptical of him because they thought that he was just a system quarterback coming out of Texas Tech, but he's proven a lot of guys wrong. His arm is really strong. Most importantly, he's ballsy. He's not afraid to make any mistakes. And when more importantly, he sees the field very, very well. And because of that, he's got his teammates rallying around him, and he's earned their trust and their support and their confidence.
And he's the only guy that can throw nearly perfect outside the pocket. Remember in one game, he was 12 for 18 outside the pocket. Mm-hmm. That's nearly impossible to do those type of. And here's another crazy thing he does. He can have the ball in his right hand, but then switch to his left and make a play when he needs to. How many quarterbacks can you say can make plays like that?
Drew Brees, maybe?
Other than him, not that many. It's tough to do that when you're naturally one hand over the other. The Seahawks go into Detroit, and that's not an easy environment, Detroit, to play in. But
it's not an easy environment for the road team or the home team, if you catch my drift, because let's face facts. The Lions are probably, along with the Cardinals and the Bills, 3 of the most star-crossed franchises in the NFL. They have very little history. A lot of great players that have passed through those franchises, but very, very little memorable moments for them. And this game against the Seahawks was no exception. I mean, being down by a couple of touchdowns in the end, this just goes to show you that Detroit